for all that, earned the right now to condemn what Obama's doing. I mean, they haven't. That is why it's up to you. Because most of them will still be there, and most of them are saying, yeah, we agree with you, we're going to do better this time. Well, you better make sure they do better. And I actually am optimistic enough to think they will do better. Mainly because they don't have control of the presidency, and it'll be a partisan thing, and they'll say, let's stick it to the president, so we'll set them and pass some good bills. But anyway, we'll take it any way we can get it. So you know, I think there'll be some holding action. This thing won't be turned around overnight. But the only thing that really counts is the philosophy that people hold. If you believe in liberty and freedom and property and sound money, that's what eventually we'll have in Washington. Finally, when the people gave up on the Soviet system, they just walked away. The government became dysfunctional and bankrupt. The people walked away, and their government crumbled. It was all over. And that won't happen here, and that won't be all that terrible either. Under those conditions, one function of government that we've talked about many times over the years will come into fruition, and that is nullification will be the way it'll work. People will just nullify. The great fear, of course, is that it's conducive for violence, and that, of course, is what I strive for, is try to prevent that. And I think all the bad ideas and all the things that they have done to us and pretending to do for us be counteracted with better ideas. So better economic ideas are the best way to counteract the bad economic ideas. And those ideas, these views are being received better now than ever before. Believe me, even 2 or 3 years ago, mentioning in an audience like this about Austrian economics, and people would look at you and wonder. The other thing is, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I only had about 30 people sitting out here anyway. So the numbers of people are growing, and it's not me that has done it. It has been the people, the teachers, the internet, and everybody that has written for 30 or 40 years and trying to hold this together. We have all had a glimpse of what this country was about. We know and understand what it was, and I think a lot of us are realizing that we're losing it. So the groundwork has been laid. The opportunity is there because economically we're in big trouble, and we can't continue to feed it with more inflation and more spending. It's sort of like treating a drug addict. You know, the drug addict comes in. If you don't treat him, he dies, but if you treat him and take him off the drugs, he gets pretty angry and upset and annoyed. And that's the way it is in Washington. Most of the members of Congress, they would probably cut back and go for it if that's what they think you want. But there will be so many symptoms from it. So the withdrawal symptoms are so bad. That's why it's hard to expect that they really will get down to brass tacks and start doing the right things. Unfortunately, I think we'll continue to make things worse, and that's going to be very bad economically and politically, because that will lead eventually to a dollar crisis. That means that you can't keep printing money forever. You know, we've gone into this crisis because for all these many decades, and with the total destruction of the gold standard in 1971, we have been following this idea that deficits don't matter, and conservatives offered that as a program as well. There's been many on the conservative side that deficits don't matter, lower tax rate, we'll get more money from the government, and we won't have to raise taxes. Well, I never want to get more money for the government, even if the rates would. But no, the people in this country are starting to realize, you know, what the advantages are of changing things. That's where I think I'm very encouraged to know that so many people are saying that we'll change this. And when that comes about, of course, we will have to replace it with something. And the replacement has to be well known. There's a lot of activity in the Tea Party movement, and I think that is delightful, and I think this is an expression, but it's also very important to be more than just opposed to the mess in Washington. There is a mess, and we need to do something, but we have to have other proposals. proposals. We have to be explicit about what the monetary policy ought to be and why the budget should be balanced, and all these efforts to offer something as an alternative. And this is what the Campaign for Liberty and Young Americans for Liberty would like to offer. You know, some precise answers, things that we believe in. And of course, we start with the idea that liberty is important. All our political actions, as far as I'm concerned, should be for one purpose, and that is to promote your liberty. In a few years, we will know what will happen, but the changes are coming about are very positive. And yet at the time, in the short run, I think things are going to get much worse. The dollar crisis is worse than the financial crisis. The financial bubble collapsing got a lot of people's attention, and a lot of people are suffering from it. But a dollar crisis affects everybody. That means the money quits functioning, or gets nearly not functioning at all, which means runaway inflation and high interest rates, and a threat to political stability. So that is very important. That is why we must know what we want, and we must once again look to our history. It isn't like we have to invent something. I mean, we don't have to come up with something brand new, because most of history, the people of the world have lived with tyranny. It has been this short period of time of a couple hundred years under America's leadership that individual liberty was emphasized, and free markets and properties have been emphasized. We were the freest, and we became the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. So we don't have to reinvent that. All we have to do, you know, if we had nothing else to do, and we had people in Washington say, boy, we have a crisis, what we should do, I would say, well, why don't we start by first read the Constitution and follow the Constitution. You know, we never repealed the provisions about sound money in the Constitution. You know, we'd be right back there immediately, and they never. And then if you go to Article 1, Section 8, and say, "Oh, these are only the things that we're allowed to do." Oh, boy, we don't have much to do. That's right. We don't have to come up here so much. Go on home, come up here once a month, and cut your pay about 90%. A little while ago, nullification was said to be rather radical, but you know, when they accepted it, Jefferson argued for it, and they argued the cases. It didn't become a tradition, but it is an accepted principle. I don't think the founders would have ever joined in the Union if they ever thought for a minute that not only nullification wasn't proper, I think they all believed that secession was possible and permissible. Yeah! Document which was designed not to regulate or control you in any way, but to restrain the government. They even added on the 9th and 10th Amendment, which we totally ignore. So all we have to do is get people to read it, get people to be serious. If they're going to put their hand up and take their oath of office, hold their feet to the fire and say, this is what it says. You're not allowed to do this. And that would bring us back to our senses. Because a free nation with property rights and contract rights and sound money can be a very prosperous country and a nation. You know, the difficulty with implementing these views at the moment, there would be some repercussions. The withdrawal symptoms would not be good. There would be a tough time for a year, but then it would be over. But if we could do that, and we retain one thing, your right to your life, and the right to your property, and the right to keep the government out of your life, believe me, we would be wealthy in a very short period of time. It's not a good political move to say, okay, they don't authorize the welfare state, so the first thing we're going to do is cut medical aid to dependent children. See, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But it's not in the Constitution to have the welfare state. The welfare state eventually has to go because it will self-destruct. But there is no authorization in the Constitution for us to feel obligated to police the world and take care of everybody else. Today, presidents can go to war without a declaration, and they can fund it through the Federal Reserve and Congress. They're very complicit. They provide the money, but they never provide any discussion or resistance, and they never say, wait, why are we fighting this war? It's not declared. I think it would be a very good policy for this country to make the declaration that we follow the Constitution, and no longer should we go into war without a declaration. If we do declare the war, fight it and win it and get it over with. There's no authority for us to maintain an empire. We're now in 140 countries. We have over 700 bases around the world. The war is not over in Iraq. It's only beginning in Pakistan. It's ongoing in Afghanistan. And we're attacking other countries as well. It's incessant, it's pervasive, and a lot of innocent civilians get killed. The people who are being targeted are targeted for assassination, including, believe it or not, our American government's position announced by our president and his deputies, that it is a policy of the United States government that we're allowed to target American citizens because they're bad people. Wow. Now that is very bad, and I will never want to defend some of the people that like to go after, but the rule of law has to be defended. If they can go after one bad guy and ignore all the rules and all the laws and eliminate the right of habeas corpus and go into torturing people in secret prisons, that means someday that can apply to us, so we can't let that go unnoticed. We shouldn't be policing the world. It's unconstitutional, it's bad economics because we can't afford